Ning Zhi is not sure if she is a water sign person, but she is naturally an actor. The distinction between love and desire is particularly clear. Fu Yuxing didn't love her. She was really in love with other men, but he crazily imprisoned her and said, "Zhizhi, you are mine. Why haven't you let me go?" Of Chapter 1. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ning Zhi doesn't know if people born under the water sign are all born movie stars. The distinction between love and desire is particularly clear. Are you afraid? The man's voice that fell in her ear carried a burning desire/longing, causing her body to tremble in waves within reach of her fingertips. Don't be here. The sound of footsteps came, and Ning Zhi's crying voice suddenly came to an end. Mist filled the eyes, hasty and afraid. Men remain unmoved. She had to grit her teeth tightly, afraid that she might make a faint sound and be discovered. Until the person who came and left the bathroom. She bit into the man's mouth in anger. The next second, her small face pressed against the door panel. Before she could react, Fu Yuxing had already collided from behind. The bathroom is too cramped. Fu Yuxing hastily finished. Ning Zhi supported herself with the door panel, lowered her eyes, and pulled up the lingerie and skirt hanging around her waist to put them on. When reaching out to pick up the pants on the ground, the man's sarcastic voice was on his head. Do you think taking all the items away can draw a clear line with me? You're getting engaged now, why haven't you let me go? For so long just now, Ning Zhi endured not crying. But at this moment, for some reason, she suddenly couldn't stop collapsing. Tears seemed to have opened the floodgate. Resentment and despair run rampant. She slid onto the ground, holding on to her suppressed sobs. Why is this to you? Aren't you the clearest in your heart? Ning Zhi's blushing face gradually faded. Fu Yuxing, I won't even be a mistress in death, he said with a choked voice. He can't think of using this to humiliate her. No. Fu Yuxing seemed to have heard a big joke. Your mother is so experienced as a mistress. If you don't act properly, wouldn't it be a waste of such good genes, said the cold eyebrows and eyes. If your mother seduces a married man, then seduce his son. Ning Zhi's face tightened, and the redness faded away. My whole body's blood has coagulated. I didn't seduce you. The man sneered, why don't you also defend your mother? Ning Zhi pursed her lips tightly. At the beginning, she would argue for her mother. Until one day, Fu Yuxing threw evidence of Zhou Fenghua seducing his father onto Ning Zhi's face. Afterwards, she never explained a word for Zhou Fenghua again. If I can't see you at the villa tonight, I'll go to your school tomorrow to find you. Fu Yuxing threw down the words that grabbed Ning Zhi's neck and left. Ning Zhi went back to the women's restroom to tidy up. Returning to the private room, I just pushed open the door. I heard someone ask, Mr. Fu, why did your lips break? She stood at the door, unsure for a moment whether to enter or exit. Tonight's small gathering in high school, Ning Zhi didn't want to come. The class monitor repeatedly invited and said that there were too few girls, so she must attend. He also said in the group that he invited the academic idols they admired. Ning Zhi thought it was the person she once admired. Unexpectedly, when I entered the private room, the person I saw was Fu Yuxing. Moreover, the class monitor showed him exceptional enthusiasm and respect. From the moment she saw him, Ning Zhi's heart hung in suspense. The excuse of going to the bathroom was to find a reason to leave. As a result, he pulled him into the men's restroom. Fu Yuxing looked up and glanced lightly at the door. Everyone's gaze followed him and landed on Ning Zhi. She felt a panic in her heart and her face was hot. We should not lose our sanity and leave him with external trauma. I just ran into a little wild cat outside, teased for a while, and caught it. The man's light voice pulled back everyone's gaze. The boys had warm and ambiguous expressions on their faces. The girl next to her asked where Ning Zhi had gone and why it took so long. Ning Zhi lied and said she answered a phone call. The topic of others is all about Fu Yuxing. I heard that Mr. Fu and Miss Gu are getting engaged next month. I congratulate Mr. Fu in advance and toast him. Everyone raised their glasses and stood up. Ning Zhi remained motionless. The girl next to her lightly touched her arm again, gesturing for her to raise her glass. Ning Zhi picked up her own cup. The people gathered tonight are all locals from the southern city. In high school, I watched photos of Fu Yuxing every day on the school honor list. I am already so familiar that I can no longer be familiar with it. Now that they have graduated, everyone is even more eager to establish a relationship with Fu Yuxing and Fu Group. The original gathering of classmates has turned into a big competition to build connections and curry favor with Fu Yuxing. After the end, the class monitor called a car for 3 female classmates who didn't drive. Advised them to return home and send a message to report their safety. When he finally arrived in front of Ning Zhi, a hint of unease flashed on his face. Ning Zhi, I remember you didn't drive here either. I'll take you back. Ning Zhi is looking at her phone. Upon hearing the class monitor's words, he looked up in surprise. Recalling what he said in my mind, I was about to refuse. Fu Yuxing's cool voice echoed from behind her, she's sitting in my car. The class monitor is unaware of the complex relationship between Fu Yuxing and Ning Zhi. With a hint of doubt in his shocked eyes, he hesitated and asked, do Mr. Fu and Mr. Ning Zhi know each other? He thought of Fu Yuxing and Ning Zhi leaving the private room one after another tonight, and returning to the private room one after another. A hint of unease suddenly arose in my heart. Me and her. Fu wanted to turn his head towards Ning Zhi halfway through his jargon. Ning Zhi met his gloomy gaze, and her small face slightly changed. She remembered the warning given to her by Fu Yuxing back then. She is not allowed to reveal their relationship to anyone. So, she never mentioned the name Fu Yuxing to anyone. I know Mr. Fu's fiancé A.E. The class monitor felt relieved. With a smile on his face, he said to Fu Yuxing, Mr. Fu, your wedding with Miss Gu is coming soon and we must be very busy. I won't trouble you anymore. I'll take Ning Zhi back. Fu Yuxing looked at the acne on the other person's face. He kindly said, you go to Nanqing Hospital to see Dr. Jianghuai Jiang. He can help you treat your acne on your face without affecting your future girlfriend. Ning Zhi. The class monitor awkwardly covered the half-acne in hot face, said something awkwardly, and ran away. Ning Zhi was forced to board Fu Yuxing's car. Due to Fu Yuxing's gloomy face all the way, he never spoke. Ning Zhi felt a little uneasy in her heart. I don't know if he was angry, but she took advantage of his business trip to move away his luggage. It's still abnormal to blame her for the class monitor's attention just now. After getting off the car, deliberately slowing down and falling behind him by several steps. She deceived herself by trying to lower her sense of presence and make him forget herself. Heaven is not as good as people wish. Stepping into the living room, her phone rang. Unfortunately, it was her mother, Zhou Fenghua, who called. Ning Zhi instinctively wanted to hang up, and the man carrying her suddenly turned around to look. Touching her flickering gaze, his eyes suddenly narrowed and he asked in a deep voice, why don't you answer? Ning Zhi's statement of typing wrong has not yet been uttered. My hands suddenly emptied. Fu Yuxing snatched her phone and helped her press the answer button. Her face changed drastically as she reached out to grab her phone. But he was pushed by the man to sit on the soft shoe-changing stool next to him. As Zhou Fenghua's voice came out of her phone, Fu Yuxing held onto the back of her head with one hand and skillfully extended his slender hand through the collar of her skirt on her chest. Chapter 2. Hot touch sweeps nerves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ning Zhi, why aren't you talking? Ning Zhi's stiff body pressed tightly against the cabinet door behind her and asked stiffly, can you call me? Is there anything I need? Are you still angry? Zhou Fanghua's tone was very poor. I mentioned you before, it was for your own good. Can't you understand my hard work as a mother? Your salary, which is not even as good as a beggar's. I'm not angry. Seeing that she had to call 2 days earlier to talk about something, Ning Zhi panicked and interrupted. She cannot resign, let alone work at the Fu group. The man's fingers suddenly opened her underwear, and a scorching sensation swept through her nerves. Ning Zhi couldn't resist. Zhou Fanghua heard it and questioned in a suspicious voice, "What's the noise from your side?" Ning Zhi panicked and said, "It's nothing, I'll call you later." "Ning Zhi, don't hang up on my phone." Zhou Fanghua arrogantly said, "I transferred 100,000 yuan to your card. On Sunday, for the old man's birthday, you used that money to buy a decent gift, and the rest to buy yourself a new outfit. Don't dress like a beggar." Ning Zhi looked up and saw the mockery on the corner of the man's mouth. With her self-esteem hurt, she pricked her whole body and said, "Who asked you to put money into my card? I have a job and don't need your money. If you think I'm not good enough, you can refuse to let me go." If she could really refuse to go, she would be extremely grateful. "Did I give you the wrong money back?" Zhou Fanghua was so angry that he cursed loudly, "Now that your wings are hard, you don't want my money. You have so much backbone. After your father's death, why didn't you stand on your own and come with me to the Fu family as a drag on the oil, which made Fu Yuxing dislike me? Who said only enemies would stab the knife? Family members stabbing the knife is the most accurate and ruthless." Ning Zhi was stabbed with a knife by Zhou Fanghua, causing her to bleed profusely. Tears rolled in my eyes. "If I could do it again, I would rather ask for food than stay with you at the Fu family." She was fed up with her self-esteem being trampled on by them. It seems that Fu Yuxing doesn't mind knowing that she is not only hated by him, but also despised by Zhou Fanghua. Thinking of the money she spent in those years, Zhou Fanghua forced her to keep an account. She felt another pain in her heart, stubbornly trying to regain her last bit of self-esteem. "I'll remember how much money I've spent on you over the years. Don't worry, I'll pay you back without any difference." Hanging up the phone and still feeling frustrated, Ning Zhi directly blocked Zhou Fanghua, the phone, and WeChat. Fu Yuxing's fingers stopped at her sensitive spot. "The meaning is unclear. I have a way to make you separate yourself from the Fu family and me. Do you want to listen?" Ning Zhi was trapped between him and the cabinet door, with a pear blossom and rain-like appearance that made people want to be brutally devastated. "What's the solution? Let that woman leave the Fu family by herself." She sneered and straightened her chest, saying, "If you want to do it, hurry up. If you don't, let go of me." If she has that ability. At the age of 8, when she first went to Fu's house and fell into a cold pond with a high fever for 3 days, she persuaded Zhou Fanghua. However, she requested Zhou Fanghua to take her away from the Fu family, in exchange for being slapped hard twice. And Zhou Fanghua grabbed her ear and warned her to stay safe in the Fu family, otherwise she would be thrown onto the street and frozen to death. Fu Yuxing did not let Ning Zhi go. From the first-floor foyer to the sofa, and then to the second-floor bedroom and bathtub. Ning Zhi was tormented by him until 4 a.m. For a moment, she felt like she was about to die. I couldn't help but beg him to end. Fu Yuxing looked at her, who was about to faint at any moment, and said, "If you agree to the previous proposal, I will end it immediately." "Okay, I promise." Ning Zhi felt that heaven and earth were spinning. She doesn't want to die after herself. The internet is filled with reports of her naked death under Fu Yuxing. Fu Yuxing may even spread rumors that she is as shameless as Zhou Fanghua, seducing him to enjoy glory and wealth in the Fu family. So, she won't even close her eyes when she dies. She doesn't want to die. She wants to live, and one day, she will break free from her desires and enjoy a truly free and happy life. When Ning Zhi woke up, it was almost noon. The room with tightly closed curtains still retains the scent of doing it several times last night. There is a new set of clothes with hanging tags at the end of the bed. A 5-digit price. She glanced at it and threw the clothes back onto the bed. Touching her phone, there was a message sent to her by Fu Yuxing. If you don't want to bring back your items, buy all new ones. Buying everything new naturally costs his money. During the 4 years that Ning Zhi maintained this relationship with Fu Yuxing, she never willing to spend a penny on him. That is her last dignity. I'll go back and bring it. Reply to his message. She got out of bed and picked up the dress that he had picked up and thrown on the ground last night. Wrapped in a towel, went to the laundry room to wash, dry, and put on. Go back to the rented room and bring back your luggage. In order to save money, she had to share the apartment with others. Later on, I got used to it and didn't want to live alone. My current roommate is a senior who graduated 1 year older than her. Now teaching at the same school. When Ning Zhi returned, the other party was answering the phone. I don't know who hit her, but seeing her, I am particularly pleased. Ning Zhi pointed to her at the door and pulled her suitcase out. Before returning to the villa, she turned to the mall and spent 30 yuan to buy a pair of chess as a birthday gift for Mr. Fu. Zhou Fanghua gave her the money, but she returned it intact. Because she didn't spend much money, when Zhou Fanghua snatched the chess, Ning Zhi didn't feel sorry for the money. Just sarcastically watching Zhou Fanghua, who was so unfamiliar that she hardly knew him, throw the stolen chess into the trash can. Blame her for wanting to anger her to death, what kind of junk she bought. Not wanting to hear her harsh words, Ning Zhi turned her head and left. Where will Zhou Fanghua give up? Chasing up and grabbing her, he questioned, where are you going? Ning Zhi looked expressionlessly at the annoyance on her face and sneered, of course, I'm going back. I won't embarrass you here. Zhou Fanghua's voice was sharp and sharp. You're going back now. Are you deliberately not letting me have a better time at Fu's house? If it's not easy, then leave. Ning Zhi's face was full of mockery. Zhou Fanghua stabbed a knife into her heart and said, leave. Can you earn 50,000 or 100,000 yuan a month? You can't even afford to support yourself. What are you using to support me? Ning Zhi ignored the pain in her heart and mouth. She forcefully pulled out the hand she was holding and said expressionlessly, before you entered the Fu family, you were able to have a simple meal. Now that you leave the Fu family, you can't eat what I want you to eat. Cannot. Zhou Fanghua angrily said, you've had enough of following your poor dad back then, and now you will never go back to live that begging life with you again. When mentioned about her father, Ning Zhi's face slightly changed. Accidentally, I saw a man getting out of the car in the parking lot a few meters away. Thinking of what he said that night, the corners of his eyes twitched. If Zhou Fanghua is willing to leave the Fu family, she won't have to face that pervert Fu Yuxing anymore. Being humble in front of one's own mother is better than being humiliated in front of that man. With this in mind, she couldn't help but soften her tone when she spoke again, with a hint of choking. Mom, why don't you leave the Fu family just for me? Shall we conclude chapter 3 here? You are listening at novelfull.audio. For you. Zhou Fanghua looked at Ning Zhi with disdain in her eyes. It seems like she's talking in her dreams during the day. This gaze caught Ning Zhi's eye. I had to clench my little hand and suppress the layers of sadness that surged in my heart. Yes, for me. As long as you are willing to leave the Fu family, I will work hard to earn a lot of money to support you, said the stiff words overflowing her red lips. Zhou Fanghua sneered, you're not willing to quit your job that you can't even support yourself. Where are you going to earn a lot of money to support me? Are you planning to take money from the parents of the students? I have a deputy. First, come with me to congratulate the old man on his birthday, and then I will consider and give you an answer later. Ning Zhi's words were interrupted. A hint of melancholy fell into her eyes. seeing that Zhou Fenghua was lying to her. My heart is becoming increasingly bitter. However, if you want to leave again, it's already too late. Fu Yuxing and Gu Linshan walked over. Ning Zhi was unprepared and her body was suddenly pushed out of balance, rushing forward. I'm about to bump into Gu Linshan. With a faint, "Be careful," sound, Gu Linshan was pulled into Fu Yuxing's arms. Ning Zhi managed to stabilize her body in a disheveled state and did not fall. Just now, Fu Yuxing said that to Gu Linshan. I didn't even glance at her. Looking coldly at Zhou Fenghua pushing her. Zhou Fenghua was so scared that she apologized and shook the pan repeatedly. If you want to, I'm sorry, Miss Gu. I'm sorry, it's all Ning Zhi's fault. Ning Zhi, please apologize to Miss Gu quickly. Ning Zhi was not surprised at all by what Zhou Fenghua said. Her gaze fell on Fu Yuxing's large hand, which was clasping Gu Linshan's wrist. At the tip of my heart, inexplicably, a sour and astringent sensation bloomed. Gu Linshan looked up at Fu Yuxing's gloomy expression and smiled, saying, I'm fine, Ning Zhi. It's been a long time no see. Are you okay? Ning Zhi tugged at the corner of her mouth, a light but polite smile, and said, I heard you're getting engaged. Congratulations. There was only a half-second pause between the words, you, and her. Fu Yuxing's sharp gaze turned towards her. My arm hurts. Turning her head, Zhou Fenghua withdrew her hand and whispered a warning, you haven't said hello to your brother who wants to go yet. Zhou Fenghua has always hoped that Ning Zhi can please Fu Yuxing. Since she arrived at the Fu family with her at the age of 8, Zhou Fenghua has said the most to her. Just have a sweet mouth, treat Fu Yuxing well, let him down, and not make him angry. It seems that Ning Zhi has no soul, no self. For example, now. If she doesn't speak, Zhou Fenghua will definitely give her another twist. To avoid getting another bruise on my arm. She let out a perfunctory shout, Brother Wanqing. Zhou Fenghua immediately smiled and tried her best to please, if there is anything that can help with your engagement with Miss Gu, just tell her directly. Anyway, she has more time as a teacher. Mom. Ning Zhi furrowed her eyebrows. In Zhou Fenghua's eyes, she was just doing 10 different tasks a day and had more time. Unfortunately, Fu Yuxing answered like a lunatic, okay. Ning Zhi looked at him incredulously. The man's eyebrows and eyes are indifferent, and the meaning behind his eyes is unclear. With just one glance, Ning Zhi quickly averted her gaze. Zhou Fenghua couldn't wait anymore. That's settled, Zhizhi. Thank you for giving you the opportunity to exercise. Seeing Ning Zhi not speaking, she only looked at Fu Yuxing. Zhou Fenghua was afraid that she would offend Fu Yuxing, so she said, Yuxing, Zhizhi, please tell you Yuxing's new number. You can add a WeChat account and get in touch in the future. On the last day of Ning Zhi's college entrance examination, Fu Yuxing's father passed away. Since then, she hasn't rested for a day. I work 2 or 3 jobs a day to earn tuition fees. I refuse to return to the Fu family even during holidays. Only on the old man's birthday and Fu Zhongming's Memorial Day, Ning Zhi will go back. Even so, he never said 3 words to Fu Yuxing in public. No wonder Zhou Fenghua thought that Fu Yuxing didn't have Ning Zhi's contact information. I have her WeChat and phone number. When Fu Yuxing said these words, his gaze was fixed on Ning Zhi. Zhou Fenghua seemed surprised, but did not do what he thought. Only she said, is that right? That's good. Although you don't have a blood relationship, you are also siblings. If old Fu knows that you get along well, he will definitely feel relieved. Whether it's harmonious or not depends on your daughter. Fu Yuxing's mouth seemed to curve slightly. Give pressure to Ning Zhi. Zhizhi, did you hear me? Your brother, Wanqing, is now the CEO of the group, and the situation is different from yours. You need to contact him more in the future, otherwise, you will lose your job. Mom. Ning Zhi's face suddenly changed and interrupted Zhou Fanghua, wishing to disappear immediately. Gu Linshan saw the situation and spoke up at the right time to help Ning Zhi out. Zhizhi, I have something I want to ask for your help with. Can we talk alone? Ning Zhi understood her expression. Of course, he replied. After Ning Zhi and Gu Linshan left together, Zhou Fanghua wanted to please Fu Yuxing a few more words. But Fu Yuxing's face instantly darkened. A powerful air conditioning field is released. Zhou Fanghua opened her mouth and didn't dare to say anything more. I can only calculate in my heart and later find an opportunity to tell Ning Zhi that I have found a wealthy partner for her. You can't spit out the 500,000 you've received. Mr. Fu's birthday banquet was attended by prominent figures from the southern city. The chest that Ning Zhi bought for the old man was thrown away by Zhou Fanghua. She refused to ask Zhou Fanghua to take out the gift she had prepared for her. Angered, Zhou Fanghua gave her arm another hard squeeze. Wanting to say a few more soft and hard words, Mr. Fu had already seen Ning Zhi and called her over. Grandpa. Ning Zhi respectfully and politely called out. During her years in the Fu family, except for the deceased Fu Zhongming, it was none other than Mr. Fu who treated her the gentlest. But she has self-awareness. Mr. Fu's gentleness and politeness are different from those of Mr. Fu Zhongming. Ning Zhi took out a pack of milk and strawberry-flavored lollipops from her bag to give to Mr. Fu as a birthday gift. Next to her, Mrs. Fu, the second wife of the Fu family, mocked her and said, Ning Zhi, why don't you give your grandfather a lollipop as a birthday gift? Zhou Fanghua panicked and immediately took a step forward to explain, Dad, Zhizhi was just joking with you. She left the gift she gave you with me. Are you joking? Mr. Fu frowned and asked Ning Zhi displeased, is it difficult? You'll have to take this lollipop back later. Everyone. Ning Zhi shook her head and said, although I really like it, if I give it to my grandfather as a birthday gift, I won't ask for it again. Mr. Fu's eyebrows and eyes relaxed, and he smiled twice with satisfaction. Shouting again to Fu Yuxing standing behind Ning Zhi. A familiar breath brushes against the nose. The man stood on Ning Zhi's left side with a silent sense of oppression. Ning Zhi lowered her head, observing the nose and the heart through the nose. Until Mr. Fu handed the lollipop she gave to Fu Yuxing. He said, please help me keep this bag of lollipops that man gave me, and give it to my great-grandson when he is born 7 months later. Ning Zhi felt a suffocation in her heart. The brain is buzzing incessantly. Until she felt the man beside her fall on her gaze. She suddenly regained her senses. The tightly clenched hands hanging on the side of the body slowly loosened. The man's low voice penetrated into his ear, okay, I'll take care of it for Grandpa first. The old man asked again, where's Lin Shan? Why isn't she with you? She's on the phone outside. Ning Zhi couldn't express her feelings as she listened to Fu Yuxing's gentle tone when talking about Gu Linshan. After Fu wanted to walk, Ning Zhi didn't want to stay here for a minute. Take advantage of Zhou Fanghua's conversation with 2 wealthy wives. No one noticed, she quietly left the hotel. Take a taxi. Ning Zhi's brain is still in a mess. After a while, she took out her phone to edit the message. I have made several deletions. Finally, I sent a very positive message to Fu Yuxing. She has already agreed to consider leaving the Fu family. For the sake of Miss Cheng's child, shall we end this? Chapter 4. Little bitch, I waited for this day for 4 years. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Outside the banquet hall. After reading Ning Zhi's WeChat, Fu Yuxing's clear and 3-dimensional facial features were instantly covered with a layer of coldness. Gu Linshan, who had finished calling next to her, looked up and saw his gloomy expression. You want to do it, what's wrong with you? Your face looks so ugly. Asked with concern. Fu Yuxing looked at her and asked, did you tell him about your pregnancy? Gu Linshan's eyes were slightly red, and her voice couldn't conceal her emotions. No, she said, did you argue? Fu Yuxing frowned lightly and said in a gentle tone, if you go back on your word now, there's still time. Do you regret it? Gu Linshan didn't answer the rhetorical question. Fu Yuxing's mouth curved slightly. I never do anything I regret, he said without a smile in his ink eyes. I won't back out either. Gu Linshan put aside her emotions and turned the topic to ask, didn't you always dislike Ning Zhi? Why did you suddenly agree to Zhou Fanghua's proposal today? Gu Linshan and Fu Yuxing were childhood sweethearts and grew up together. Over the years, she was also most aware of Fu Yuxing's hatred towards Ning Zhi's mother and daughter. Fu Yuxing's slender body tilted slightly, and his facial features hidden in the light and shadow became increasingly obscure and difficult to distinguish. You always say, it's not her fault. When he said she, he meant Ning Zhi. Gu Linshan blinked unexpectedly. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Have you finally figured it out? Fu Yuxing didn't answer her words, lowered his eyes, and his slender fingers just pointed to open WeChat. Gu Linshan smiled and said, if you think it through, I can tell you that Chen Yang likes Ning Zhi. Take a look at her. Fu Yuxing put his phone back in his pocket. How did you know? Said the voice with a hint of coolness as she spoke again. Gu Linshan couldn't tell if he was angry. I also stumbled upon it by chance. Later, when I asked Chen Yang, he admitted, she explained, will your parents agree? Fu Yuxing's voice carried a hint of mockery. How could her parents possibly agree? Gu Linshan shook her head and said, my parents would never agree, so no matter how much Chen Yang likes Ning Zhi, she can only be raised outside. Gu Linshan is in a wealthy family and has seen many such things. She didn't notice that Fu Yuxing's face suddenly darkened due to her words. The message Ning Zhi sent to Fu Yuxing sank into the sea. She simply went back to renting a house. On Monday afternoon after school, I received a phone call from Zhou Fanghua. Say to wait for her outside the school. Ning Zhi walked out of the school gate and indeed saw Zhou Fanghua's car parked across the road. She crossed the road, got in the car, and before she could speak, Zhou Fanghua asked the driver to drive quickly. It seems like if you stay in this place for a minute, it will get moldy. On the road, Zhou Fanghua said to Ning Zhi, as long as you agree to one condition, I will leave the Fu family. What conditions? Ning Zhi did not believe Zhou Fanghua's words. But in my heart, I hope to persuade her to leave. Just like how Zhou Fanghua repeatedly hurt her and showed dislike towards her, she still couldn't control her inner thoughts. It's the same to want her approval and to be praised by the mother like other children. I have found you a partner who is mature, has a solid family background, and knows how to love women. If you are in love and marry, you can live a good life without having to teach any more books. I don't go on blind dates or get married. Ning Zhi's unresponsive refusal immediately made Zhou Fanghua's face change. When I was 24 years old, you were already 2 years old. If you didn't take advantage of your youth to look wealthy, you would have to marry a poor person while waiting for old Pearl Huang. I can support myself, why do I have to rely on getting married to live a good life? If you don't agree to the blind date, just go back and resign now, and then ask Yuxing to arrange a job for you at the Fu group. I got married, will you leave the Fu family? Yes. Ning Zhi chose the former between blind date and resignation. In order to make Ning Zhi behave better, Zhou Fanghua played a family card and said, I am your mother. Everything I do is for your own good. You should be clever later and not be looked down upon by others. At the entrance of the private room at the club, Zhou Fanghua made an excuse to go to the restroom and let Ning Zhi enter by herself. Half a minute later, Ning Zhi lifted her hand and knocked on the door. Seeing the man standing inside the door, her face suddenly changed drastically. Miss Ning, long time no see. Ning Zhi, who had just realized her reaction, turned around and was about to run when the man grabbed one arm and forcefully pulled her into the private room. The door slammed shut behind her. You let go of me. The man's hand touched Ning Zhi's face. She has blood flowing back all over her body. Screaming. It seemed like a sudden return to the night of panic and fear 4 years ago. If it weren't for Tang Xingxiang, this jerk, using the excuse of wanting to buy her copyright to cook in her water during meals, she wouldn't have been entangled with Fu Yuxing for these 4 years. She hates this man to death. Little bitch, do you think I don't know that you were fucked by Fu Yuxing that night? Tang Xingxiang slapped Ning Zhi with a golden star in her eyes. She didn't care about the blood seeping out from the corners of her mouth. Turn your head and try to open the door. He grabbed his hair and pulled it back. Ning Zhi was rudely pressed behind the door by Tang Xingxiang, cursing, little bitch, I've been waiting for this day for 4 years. Kiss her face on the side. Zhou Fenghua's going to the bathroom is just an excuse. She plans to go downstairs from the other end of the corridor. At the entrance of the elevator, I met Gu Chenyang coming out from inside. Due to Ning Zhi's relationship, Gu Chenyang politely greeted Zhou Fenghua, Aunt Zhou. Zhou Fenghua couldn't help but wonder when he saw him alone, Gu Ershao, why are you here? Brother Yuxing and my sister are having dinner here, please call me to come over. He didn't know why Fu Yuxing suddenly called him to come over and have dinner together. He usually doesn't have much social interaction with Fu Yuxing. When Zhou Fenghua entered the elevator, Gu Chenyang gentlemanly helped her press the button on the wall. Before the elevator door closed, a sudden flash of inspiration flashed in Zhou Fenghua's mind. Stop Gu Chenyang, who is about to turn around and leave. Gu Chenyang turned around and said, Aunt Zhou, is there anything else you need? Zhou Fenghua said, I'm accompanying Zhizhi on a blind date. Gu Ershao, you usually have a good relationship with Zhizhi. If anyone knows someone with good character and family background, they should give us Zhizhi. Aunt Zhou, which room is Ning Zhi going on a blind date in? She didn't finish speaking. Just interrupted by Gu Chenyang. I saw that his face was not very good. Zhou Fenghua felt like she had guessed right earlier. If Gu Chenyang really has thoughts about Ning Zhi, it would be best for Ning Zhi to marry him. Even if the Gu family cannot accept Ning Zhi's identity, as long as Gu Chenyang likes Ning Zhi and secretly raises her outside, he will not mistreat her mother. Law. Yesterday, I heard a servant from the Fu family say that Fu Yuxing's vegetative mother showed signs of awakening. She must pave the way for herself early. Aunt Zhou, you haven't told me which room Ning Zhi is going on a blind date in yet. Gu Chenyang impatiently urged her when he saw her lose focus. Just as Zhou Fenghua was about to answer, a few meters away in the hallway, a sound of morning sun came from Gu Chenyang, released the button and turned his head to look at Fu Yuxing walking towards the restroom. Why don't you go into the private room when you're here? Your sister is waiting for you. Fu Yuxing's gaze scanned the closed elevator door and stood a few steps away, waiting for Gu Chenyang. Gu Chenyang responded. Knowing how much Fu Yuxing hates Ning Zhi's mother and daughter, he didn't dare to ask again and walked towards him with a raised step. Chapter 5. You'd better stay away from him in the future. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Brother Yuxing, are you looking for me for anything? Gu Chenyang smiled and looked at Fu Yuxing's handsome face with a dull expression. I don't know why so many women like him, who is always cold and aloof. Fu Yuxing raised his eyebrows slightly and casually said, can we treat you to dinner? Gu Chenyang chuckled and said, okay, you'll be my brother. Law soon. Of course you can treat me to dinner. Fu Yuxing was not moved by his smile, and his eyebrows remained cold. Guess who I saw just now, he said, who, Ning Zhi. Gu Chenyang's expression suddenly became serious. Fu Yuxing curved his lips slightly and said, you're looking. What I see is not the person you want to see. On the contrary, it's the person you hate. Who is the person I dislike? Gu Chenyang's curiosity was aroused. Staring straight at Fu Yuxing. Fu Yuxing said in a cold voice, Tang Xingxiang, you said before that you would depose him when you saw him. Has he come out? 4 years ago, Tang Xingxiang almost destroyed Ning Zhi. After that incident, he was exposed by someone and spent 3.5 years in prison. Gu Chenyang only hates him for entering too quickly. I didn't even have a chance to deal with him myself. He is in the 607 private room in front. Fu Yuxing stopped at the entrance of the private room. Glancing at the front corridor, he said to Gu Chenyang, if you want to find him, hurry up and don't waste too much time. Your sister is pregnant and can't be hungry. I pushed open the door and entered the private room. Wanxing, were you just talking to Chenyang? Why didn't he come in? In front of the big round table. Gu Linshan saw Fu Yuxing come in, so she put down her phone and looked at him with a smile. After Fu Yuxing sat down, his tall body leaned back in the chair and casually said, he's going to find someone. Looking for someone. Gu Linshan was curious and said, is there anyone more important than you treating him to dinner? Is it difficult? Ning Zhi is also in this club. A phone call came in, and Fu Yuxing glanced at the incoming call. He stood up and said, go out and answer the phone. He took his phone and walked towards the door of the private room. Ning Zhi received 4 slaps from Tang Xingxiang. Feeling dizzy, he was thrown to the ground. Tang Xing forcefully pressed up and grabbed her with one hand, lifting both hands above her head and pressing them onto the ground. His legs pressed against her, while the other hand tore off her shirt. Touching her underwear and creamy skin inside, his eyes immediately emitted a resentful glow. He said in his mouth, I didn't have sex with you 4 years ago. Today, 4 years later, I'm going to ruin you. Bend down and bury your head in her chest. Bastard, you let go. You curse, the more you curse, the more I want you to go to hell. Tang Xingxiang said as he reached under Ning Zhi's skirt. I see it's going to be destroyed here tonight. Ning Zhi held on to the idea of not wanting to be wasted even if she died, and with some unknown strength, she fiercely bit Tang Xingxiang's ear. He let go with a scream. Ning Zhi didn't care about her disheveled clothes, so she got up and went to open the door. Behind him, Tang Xingxiang cursed that stinky bitch and chased after him. When Ning Zhi opened the door, she was caught by him from behind. She screamed and pushed him away, finally turning the door handle. The back of the head was suddenly hit by a heavy object. Before falling into the darkness, she saw Gu Chenyang standing outside the door. She opened her mouth but didn't make a sound. Zhizhi. Gu Chenyang looked in shock at Ning Zhi inside the door, whose clothes were disheveled, her cheeks were red and swollen, and her hair was still messy. Quickly catching her body with quick eyes and hands. Lift up and kick Tang Xingxiang's stomach behind her. Take off your coat and wrap it around her as quickly as possible. On the corridor a few meters away, Fu Yuxing saw Gu Chenyang holding on to Ning Zhi, who was disheveled. Cut off the phone and stride over. When Ning Zhi woke up, she was surrounded by a vast expanse of white. Her brain was empty for several seconds before her consciousness slowly regained its consciousness. As soon as he moved, a cold warning from the man came from the window. The doctor said you have a slight concussion. If you don't want dementia, don't move around. Ning Zhi froze for 2 seconds, her eyes rolling. The man's cold and thin eyebrows and eyes collided with his gaze. Her face changed. Why are you here? He frowned and asked. She remembers that the person she saw before fainting was Gu Chenyang. Difficulty cannot be achieved, and Fu Yuxing is also present. Fu Yuxing pinched his phone and came to the hospital bed, looking down at Ning Zhi, whose face was pale. If I were not here, you would have already met the king of hell. Ning Zhi didn't believe what she said. I remember seeing Gu Chenyang, and where is he? You remember clearly, he's in the bureau. Fu Yuxing's mouth curved with a mocking curve, and he gloated, his parents want to skin you now. You'd better stay away from him in the future. What does it mean? Ning Zhi had a bad premonition in her heart. As he spoke, he was about to sit up. Fu Yuxing did not stop her. Just coldly watching her almost fall back into bed because she suddenly got up and felt dizzy. With one hand pressing on the back of his head, he slowly sat up and looked at him. What's wrong with Gu Chenyang? The answer to Ning Zhi was the figure of Fu Yuxing turning around and leaving. He actually said half the words and left like that. Ning Zhi looked in disbelief towards the direction of the door. This man is truly despicable to the extreme. Ning Zhi shouted to the slammed door panel, Fu Yuxing, please explain clearly before leaving. Bastard! She dare not curse loudly. Fu Yuxing couldn't hear through the door panel. If you don't say it, then don't say it. Ning Zhi called Gu Chenyang on her own to ask. The person answering the phone is not Gu Chenyang. It's Father Gu. One thing, Fu Yuxing did not deceive Ning Zhi. Gu's parents really wish they could kill her. Gu's father told her not to approach Gu Chenyang again, let alone entangle him. After the warning, I hung up the phone. I didn't tell her why. Hanging up the phone, Ning Zhi, full of worries and doubts, couldn't lie in bed anymore. Fu Yuxing arrived at the parking lot. Gu Linshan got out of the car and quickly walked up. Urgently asked, if you want to do it, what did Tang Xingxiang say? Fu Yuxing looked at her worried expression and said, get in the car first. Gu Linshan nodded lightly. The furrowed eyebrows never relaxed. I got on the car and couldn't wait to ask again what I had just said. Compared to her worries, Fu Yuxing remained calm and composed. Tang Xingxiang was imprisoned because of Ning Zhi. He hated her to the bone, but unfortunately, Chenyang not only had a good relationship with Ning Zhi, but also because she gave him. I can't blame Chenyang either. Gu Linshan spoke for her younger brother. Chenyang and Ning Zhi have such a good relationship, how could Tang Xingxiang bear to harm Ning Zhi? But it is a fact that Chenyang intentionally hurt others, he is still too impulsive. When can I retaliate against Tang Xingxiang? What method is not feasible? Fu Yuxing said, if Tang Xinghua insists on suing it, Chenyang. Gu Linshan's face has changed. Grasp Fu Yuxing's hand. If you want to do it, do you have a way, right? Chenyang is my only younger brother and the heir of the Gu family. He can't go to jail, please help him. Fu Yuxing's eyebrows furrowed lightly. Gu Linshan realized her mistake. Hurry up and take it away. Don't worry, I won't let Chenyang go to jail. After a slight pause, he added, from now on, let him stay away from Ning Zhi. I know, don't worry, my parents won't let him have any further dealings with Ning Zhi. Fu Yuxing let out a very faint With lowered eyes, he picked up the file bag from the small table in front of him and handed it to Gu Linshan. Gu Linshan looked at him in confusion and said, what is this? The women in this file bag, regardless of their family background, character, or age, are quite suitable for Chenyang. Before he could finish speaking, Fu Yuxing's cold and gloomy expression suddenly darkened. Gu Linshan followed his gaze and saw Ning Zhi bending down and sitting in the white car, which was separated by a car. Chapter 6. She agrees to all conditions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Isn't that Ning Zhi? Gu Linshan looked at Fu Yuxing with confusion. Fu Yuxing withdrew his gaze with an unpleasant expression and asked in response, do you want to go to the police station to see Chenyang? Gu Linshan's eyes flashed with a hint of contemplation, and she gently responded, okay, let's go see Chenyang first. He has an impulsive personality, and I need to explain some things to him. Otherwise, if you help him, he won't know how to cooperate. Fu Yuxing did not answer Gu Linshan's words. Let the driver drive. The taxi arrived at the police station, and Ning Zhi paid for it. She got off and saw two dazzling headlights coming from the front. She raised her hand to cover her eyes and didn't pay attention to the license plate. The on-duty police officer listened to her identity statement and immediately let her in. Ning Zhi asked if she could see Gu Chenyang, and a police officer told her that Gu Chenyang was meeting his parents. Let her take a note first. When taking notes, Ning Zhi attempted to take full responsibility. It is said that she injured Tang Xingxiang in self-defense. Not caring about the morning sun. The police officer asked her if she knew where Tang Xingxiang was injured. Ning Zhi said with resentment, I just wanted to depose him at that time, maybe it hurt him. Is he really deposed? The police looked at her with a hint of hesitation in their eyes. Saying, Tang Xingxiang is not just being deposed. Ning Zhi is puzzled. The police officer explained again, he was cut off. Ning Zhi's face turned pale for an instant. Before leaving the hospital, she specifically inquired. I learned that Tang Xingxiang lives in the same hospital as her. She went to the ward on that floor again and heard from the nurse that he had been abandoned. But she never expected that Gu Chenyang had cut him off. What you just said was made up by yourself, it's useless. The person who cut off Tang Xingxiang is Gu Chenyang. Will he go to jail? Ning Zhi's heart was blocked when she asked these words. The police told her that if Tang Xingxiang was injured by her, it was self-defense. But Gu Chenyang injured the other party without any resistance from Tang Xingxiang. It was intentional injury. Ning Zhi wants to go and see Gu Chenyang. In the corridor, I met Gu's parents. Before she could speak, Gu's mother angrily slapped her in the face. It's all you who caused my family Chenyang, Ning Zhi. If Chenyang were to go to jail, I wouldn't let you go, he said sternly when Ning Zhi was hit and her face tilted to one side. Suddenly caught a glimpse of Fu Yuxing's cold and tall figure hidden in the dim light a few meters away. Staring coldly at this scene. At that moment, the surging emotions in her heart masked the pain on her face. The matter arose because of her. Ning Zhi was beaten and needs to apologize to her parents. I'm sorry. Don't say anything sorry to me. Go find that person surnamed Tang now. I don't care if you sleep with him or use any methods, I must stop him from suing Chenyang. Gu Chenyang is not only the flesh of his parents' hearts. Still the heir of the Gu group. His life cannot have such a stain. Ning Zhi endured the pain on her face and the bitterness in her heart. Pursed his lips and said, I will definitely find a way. Gu Mu stared at Ning Zhi's swollen face. Raise your hand and want to slap again. But was stopped by a sound of "Auntie" coming from a few meters away. Fu Yuxing walked over with slender legs. Beside her, follow Gu Lin Shan. Whenever they walk together, they are a perfect match. He didn't look at Ning Zhi, just asked about Gu Chenyang's situation, and Gu Lin Shan gave Ning Zhi a wink. Let her go first. Ning Zhi had not yet left the police station when she received news from Fu Yuxing. Wait for me outside. Her face was originally not swollen, but she just received a slap from Gu's mother, and her mind was buzzing. A female police officer led her into the room and helped her apply a piece of ice to her face. Ning Zhi's tears fell off guard. The female police officer was startled and quickly asked, Does it hurt? Can you hold on for a moment? Ning Zhi shook her head and said with tears in her eyes, No, thank you. She broke through just because of this unfamiliar warmth. When Fu Yuxing sent the message again, Ning Zhi had almost melted the ice bag. As he walked out of the police station, he saw a car not far away, his hand holding a cigarette resting on the window. She walked up to the car, paused for a few seconds, and asked, Where am I sitting? She rarely takes Fu Yuxing's car. Especially when he drives himself. In my memory, it seems like there was only one time when she sat in the passenger seat. But now, he has a fiancée AE, and she doesn't fit in that seat. Fu Yuxing's cold eyes swept over her face, revealing not only redness and swelling, but also a thin bloodstain. With his thin lips pursed slightly, he uttered two words in an extremely cold voice, Come up. Answering is not the answer to the question. Ning Zhi pursed her lips, unsure if it was to vent her anger on herself or on him, and reached out to open the rear car door. It's locked from inside and can't be opened. She glanced at Fu Yuxing and opened the passenger door to sit in. The man in the driver's seat has already thrown the smoke between his fingers. But there is still a lingering smell of smoke inside the car. Running over and getting a slap in the face, are you satisfied? The man's sarcastic words entered his ears, and Ning Zhi's hand, which was wearing a seatbelt, came to a standstill for a second. Squeeze your lips and fasten your seatbelt. Don't talk, you really want to go find Tang Xingxiang and beg him to let go of Gu Chenyang, right? A cold light flashed in Fu Yuxing's narrowed eyes. No, it's not. Ning Zhi shook her head. She was just thinking about how to talk to him earlier. Ning Zhi has been bullied by Fu Yuxing for so many years, and her only game is knowing Fu Yuxing's skills. Looking up, she fixed her gaze on Fu Yuxing's cold and handsome face and said, "Do you have a way to prevent Gu Chenyang from going to jail?" Fu Yuxing refused to answer. Ning Zhi knew she guessed right. This man has a way. She was almost violated by Tang Xingxiang back then. During the tug-of-war, she somehow dialed Fu Yuxing's phone number, while he happened to be in the same hotel. After he saved her, he didn't let her go. The next day, Tang Xingxiang's crimes were exposed, arrested, and later sentenced. Everything is fast and smooth. Ning Zhi once asked Fu Yuxing if it was his handwriting. He said disdainfully, how could he possibly stand up for her? But she just feels like he did it. Fu Yuxing, can you help him? Ning Zhi rarely seeks the pleasure of a master. After all these years, besides begging Fu Yuxing to let her go before, this is the second time she has begged him. Condition. The cold voice of Fu Yuxing was heard in Ning Zhi's ears, unexpectedly warm and down to earth like never before. As long as you're willing to help him prevent him from going to jail, I'll agree to any conditions, she blurted out as her heart tightened anyway, he's going to force her to become a mistress. What is more shameful and undignified than being a mistress? Fu Yuxing didn't answer. Silent driving on the road. He didn't speak, and Ning Zhi didn't dare to speak easily, afraid that any wrong words would offend him. I couldn't help but guess randomly whether he had changed his mind. I don't want to help. Thinking of Gu Chenyang, her heart became uneasy again. The car stopped in the underground parking lot of the hospital, and Ning Zhi quickly unfastened her seatbelt. Looking sideways at Fu Yuxing, if you haven't figured out the conditions yet, you can tell me when you think of them. The man turned his eyes coldly to look at her and said, sit down. Ning Zhi was taken aback for a moment. Fu Yuxing's face was covered with a thin layer of frost, and his mood suddenly became extremely bad. Don't let me say it again, he said. She quickly climbed over from the passenger seat. As soon as she sat on his lap, her waist tightened and the man clasped her slender waist with one hand. The other hand roughly tore open her shirt, bent down and bit her ear, commanding, help me untie the belt. 3 Forehead 8 22222 I-258. At the end of chapter 7, she was drenched in sweat. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Fu Yuxing's movements are very rude. Ning Zhi was hit several times and felt dizzy. Feeling the man's anger too clearly, she dared not show any resistance. Plus, she was afraid that others would see the car shaking and notice them, so she didn't dare to make any noise. I almost broke my lips. Fortunately, the location where Fu wanted to stop was relatively hidden, and there was a car blocking it. No one noticed them. At the end, Ning Zhi was covered in sweat, as if she had just taken a shower. I have no strength at all. I feel tired even when I raise my hand. The man pulled out a tissue and handed it to her. Ning Zhi trembled and took it, but before she could retract her hand, she was grabbed by his wrist. She looked up at his dark and unclear face in confusion. Please help me wipe it clean first. Ning Zhi's face was scorching hot. Okay. She forced herself to help him clean up. I just didn't expect it. Halfway through the cleaning, he grabbed his waist and pressed him down to sit down. When the wind and waves are calm. Ning Zhi's body was limp as mud. Fu Yuxing dressed himself and saw her looking almost dead. He wrapped her in a thin blanket from the back row and carried her upstairs. Being in the car for too long. I didn't meet anyone along the way. Being placed on the hospital bed, Ning Zhi fell asleep in a daze. Fu Yuxing looked at her face, which was not yet completely swollen, and his eyes darkened again. The phone ringtone rings at this moment. He glanced at Ning Zhi. Get up, walk to the window, then press the answer button and say, hello. Have you taken Ning Zhi back to the hospital? The phone is from Gu Linshan. Fu Yuxing stood tall and noble in front of the window. It's completely impossible to see the appearance of a beast in the car not long ago. I took her back to the hospital. My mom hit her tonight because she was in a fit of anger. If you want to do it, let her put ice on her face. After careful calculation, these things are not her fault either. Fu Yuxing has been accustomed to Gu Linshan helping Ning Zhi speak over the years. He turned to look at the woman who had slept on the hospital bed, his voice slightly cold. You don't have to worry about her affairs. Gu Linshan on the other end of the phone remained silent for a second. She grew up with Fu Yuxing and knew him to some extent. Especially when it comes to dealing with Ning Zhi. Fu Yuxing can torture Ning Zhi endlessly on his own, but he does not allow others to bully her. Even her mother slapped Ning Zhi under his nose without his permission, which made him extremely unhappy. Gu Linshan spoke helplessly, I don't want to worry either, but Chen Yang is so reckless for Ning Zhi. He repeatedly reminded me to help him take care of Ning Zhi. By the way, if possible, I showed my parents the file you gave me and they were very satisfied. They said they would arrange a blind date for my younger brother as soon as he came out. Just be satisfied. Fu Yuxing's mouth curved slightly, and there was no warmth in his eyes. Ning Zhi was awakened by the ringing of her phone. Seeing Zhou Fenghua's call, she immediately changed her face. I regret letting Zhou Fenghua out again after the last blackmail. I regret agreeing to her blind date even more. Even if you don't want to hear Zhou Fenghua's insincere concern. But she knew that if she hung up, Zhou Fenghua would definitely call again. After a few sounds, she pressed the answer button. However, she was ultimately wrong. Zhou Fenghua didn't call to care about her. She didn't even have time to speak. Zhou Fenghua questioned her with a stern expression, Ning Zhi, do you think you have some remarkable beauty? Mr. Tang looks up to you as a blessing from your previous life. Not only do you have no idea how good or bad you are, but you have also deposed someone. Where are you now? Go apologize to Mr. Tang and his family immediately, even if you kneel down, and ask for his forgiveness. It's like being poured from the beginning with a basin of ice water in the cold winter. Ning Zhi not only shook her hand while holding her phone, but her entire body couldn't stop trembling. She couldn't believe her ears. This is what her biological mother said. Layers of sadness surged up in my heart, and tears quickly blurred my vision. She interrupted Zhou Fenghua and said, Mom, do you know what Tang Xingxiang did to me before you said these things? You're not a minor, just do it. What's the big deal? He has a relationship with you, and you can marry him earlier. Although the Tang family is not as good as the Fu family, it's a life that you can never get while teaching. Ning Zhi's lips trembled several times, unable to utter a single note. Place one hand on the heart, it hurts too much there. She doesn't know why others call mom happiness and warmth. And every time she calls her mother, endless sadness and grievances permeate her heart. Shout once, get hurt once. She once thought she wasn't her own. I conducted a paternity test using my first salary as a laborer and sadly found out that they were biological mothers and daughters. When she received the results, she cried on the hospital stairs for a long time. Why did you give birth to me back then? Ning Zhi's voice choked up. On the other end of the phone, Zhou Fenghua didn't hear clearly and impatiently asked, "What are you saying?" Ning Zhi suppressed the pain in her heart. "If you're not leaving the Fu family, don't call me again in the future," he said coldly. "I'm telling you about Tang Xingxiang." "Why did you mention leaving Fu?" Ning Zhi hung up the phone. "I don't want to hear another word." She can face any harm from the outside world, but she cannot withstand the sharp blade that her loved ones pierce into her heart. When Fu Yuxing came into the ward carrying breakfast, Ning Zhigang wiped away her tears. Seeing her swollen and red eyes, he furrowed his sword eyebrows and said, "Is that all you're worried about, Gu Chenyang?" Ning Zhi looked at him in confusion. Remembering that he did it twice in the car last night, she was picked up by him and fell asleep. It seems that the matter has not been settled yet. Now when he asked, she ignored the sarcasm in his tone. "By the way, you promised to help him, what else do I have to worry about?" The man squinted his eyes and stared at her swollen and red eyes. "So why are you crying?" "It's nothing. The last thing she wants Fu Yuxing to know is that Zhou Fenghua doesn't like her. But it seems that the less I want to be known by him, the more I run into him every time." Fu Yuxing's phone rang. He didn't answer. But instead, he looked down at Ning Zhi and said, "You must listen carefully to my offer to help Gu Chenyang." Ning Zhi looked up at his dark eyes. "You tell me, I'll listen. Firstly, from now on, you are not allowed to meet Gu Chenyang again. Secondly, unless I don't want you one day, even as a mistress, you are not allowed to leave. Ning Zhi drooped her eyelids. She had made the worst plan last night. But when he said it, his heart still felt a faint pain. What if the Gu family asked for your help? Although the Fu family cannot cover the sky with one hand in the southern city, Fu Yuxing can indeed accomplish many things. She didn't believe it, the Gu family didn't look for him. Fu Yuxing's tone was unclear. "You can wait." Ning Zhi dare not wait. Gu Chenyang was arrested because of her actions, and she was worried that Fu Yu might retaliate against her. She really stood idly by. Anyway, Zhou Fenghua is unwilling to leave the Fu family, and she cannot get rid of Fu Yuxing either. Simply compromise. Perhaps as soon as this man is in a good mood, he will immediately rescue Gu Chenyang. I promise you the conditions. She didn't expect it. Fu Yuxing's face and expression did not ease. Instead, it became increasingly gloomy. Stare at her for a few seconds. He slammed the door on the breakfast he had just placed on the small table. I didn't expect him to be so affectionate towards her in Chapter 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ning Zhi looked at the heavily closed door panel with a bewildered expression on her face. Later, he remembered that he had just brought breakfast and had taken it away. You are really stingy and abnormal. Plus, it's unpredictable. In the corridor, Fu Yuxing's assistant Lin Lin saw his gloomy face. I also brought out breakfast. Mr. Fu, why did you bring breakfast again? Is it Miss Ning who doesn't want to eat it? Asked with concern. Take it to the beggar on the roadside to eat. Fu Yuxing stuffed the insulation box into the arms of the trees and walked away with a step. Lin Lin hurriedly grabbed the insulation box, looked at the door of the eye disease room, and quickly took a few steps to follow up. At the entrance of the elevator. Before Fu Yuxing stepped in, his cold eyes scanned the breakfast in the hands of the trees and he said, "Wait for me in the car." The elevator door closed in front of me. Lin Lin's mind turned around, and a smile climbed onto his face. He muttered to himself, I understand. The elevator is not going down, but going up. Returning to the ward with breakfast. Ning Zhi is preparing to order takeout. Lin Lin brought back breakfast and said that it was Fu Yuxing who asked him to give it to her. Did he bring me that breakfast? Ning Zhi didn't know what she wanted to confirm, but she had already asked. Lin Lin nodded and said, yes. Opening the box, amidst the fragrant aroma, lay her favorite crab roe soup bun. Over the years, Fu Yuxing has tormented her in various ways and knows her preferences immensely. After breakfast, the nurse came to give her an injection and infusion. Her face has completely subsided from swelling. Satisfied, he said, the effect of the ice compress is good. The face has completely reduced swelling, so I still need to apply the ointment for another 2 days. Ning Zhi looked at the nurse in shock and said, what, ointment? Last night, not only did Gu's mother slap her, but her nails also left a bloodstain on her face. When she looked in the mirror just now, she had already scabbed. The nurse asked jokingly, didn't your boyfriend tell you? Ning Zhi didn't speak. The nurse fixed the needle and looked up at her, when I brought it over last night, you fell asleep. Your boyfriend put ice on you. Ning Zhi's expression became subtle. A feeling of inexplicability grew in my heart. She and Fu Yuxing have been together for 4 years, this is the first time, and some people say he is her boyfriend. He is someone who is about to get engaged. Where is it that Ning Zhi can afford? Opening her red lips lightly, she explained, he's not. The rest of the conversation was interrupted by a sudden sound coming from the door, and someone called for a nurse. If there's anything, just ring the bell. The nurse instructed to push the cart and leave. Before opening the door, he turned back and said to Ning Zhi, your boyfriend treated you quite well. I passed by your ward at 2 a.m. and saw your boyfriend guarding you. Ning Zhi raised her hand and touched the fine marks on her face that had been scraped by Gu Mu for a moment. Bending down, pulling open the drawer, there was indeed a ointment inside. Footsteps can be heard in the corridor. The ward door was pushed open, and Gu Linshan came to see her with a fruit basket. I brought you a ointment, you apply it twice a day, and it will be better in a few days. Gu Linshan took out the ointment and handed it to Ning Zhi, then asked with concern, did it bother you last night? Ning Zhi thought of Fu Yuxing's seemingly suicidal behavior in the car last night. He shook his head and asked Gu Linshan about Gu Chenyang's situation inside. Gu Linshan told her that Fu Yuxing helped find the best lawyer and reassured her that Gu Chenyang would not be imprisoned. She asked Ning Zhi not to feel too guilty and apologized for her mother's behavior last night. When the topic turns to Fu Yuxing again, Ning Zhi couldn't help but ask, Miss Gu, are you pregnant? Gu Linshan smiled and admitted generously, did I want to tell you? No, it's not. Ning Zhi's gaze fell on her flat abdomen. The finger of the hand placed under the blanket slowly curled up. He must be very happy, right? Gu Linshan's eyes flickered slightly. Fortunately, he was worried about my anemia and asked me to stop my work first. Ning Zhi tugged at the corner of her mouth and smiled somewhat reluctantly. Fu Yuxing cares so much about Gu Linshan and their children that in the future, when their children are born, they will definitely not lack love. I wouldn't have imposed my own pain on innocent girls just like Fu Yuxing did. Glancing at Ning Zhi's neck with a sharp eye, half of the kiss marks were exposed where her hair was blocking her. Gu Linshan asked with concern, Ning Zhi, is it Tang Xingxiang who caused it on your neck? Ning Zhi's heart skipped a beat. In a panic, she raised her hand to cover the area where Gu Linshan had been teasing her hair. Not Tang Xingxiang. Last night, although Tang Xingxiang wanted to ruin her. But she has been resisting. Tang Xingxiang failed. The marks on her neck were made by Fu Yuxing while he was in the car. Gu Linshan withdrew her hand. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Gu Linshan paused slightly and said, Chenyang abandoned Tang Xingxiang for you without any consideration. If it weren't for me seeking help from Yuxing, he might have been imprisoned this time. Ning Zhi just said a word and then closed her mouth. Gu Linshan thought she was guilty about Gu Chenyang's matter. Staring at her and asking, Ning Zhi, can I ask you a question? Ning Zhi, you ask. Do you know that Chen Yang likes you? Ning Zhi was shocked and said, Miss Gu Chen Yang and I are just good friends. Gu Linshan smiled and said, there's no such thing as a simple friendship between a man and a woman. It's nothing more than the one who is secretly in love and keeps it a secret. Let's just keep it to ourselves. Ning Zhi doesn't know how to answer. To prove that Gu Chenyang likes her, Gu Linshan gave herself and Fu Yuxing as examples, just like me and Yuxing. At first, we were just ordinary friends. Think about it, does Chenyang always respond to your requests? With just one word from you, he can be at your beck and call. He has been treating me like this for years. Ning Zhi's mind is a bit dazed. Gu Linshan was immersed in the sweetness between her and Fu Yuxing. With a gentle smile on his face, he said, no matter what I do, he supports me. No matter what I ask him to do, he agrees. Ning Zhi also wants to smile. Express blessings and envy towards her. But she couldn't laugh. At the heart, a fine layer of sourness spreads. She has always known that Fu Yuxing has a good relationship with Gu Linshan. I didn't expect him to be so affectionate towards her. Before Gu Linshan left, she said to Ning Zhi, Chen Yang likes you, but I have already helped him find some suitable socialites. Ning Zhi, if you also like Chen Yang, don't worry too much about fame. Being together is the most important thing, right? Miss Gu, I think you misunderstood. Ning Zhi frowned and looked serious. Gu Linshan had a clear expression on her face and said, I've brought what I should bring today. You don't have to rush to refuse. Think carefully, and if you're willing, I'll ask Yuxing to help buy a villa for you and Chen Yang to live in. Thank you for your kindness, I don't want to. Being rejected by Ning Zhi, Gu Linshan's tone became a bit cold. Ning Zhi, isn't being with Chen Yang stronger than a scumbag like your mother who pushed you to Tang Xingxiang? I won't talk to Tang Xingxiang, nor will I talk to Gu Chenyang. She originally wanted to say that she doesn't work as a mistress. However, her current identity and the conditions for agreeing to Fu Yuxing. I don't seem qualified to say such things. What came to her mind, she suddenly asked Gu Linshan in reverse, Miss Gu, if Fu Yuxing were to marry you and still raise a lover outside, would you be willing to do so? Gu Linshan confidently said, if you're not someone like that, he won't betray your marriage. Ning Zhi wants to laugh. In Gu Linshan's eyes, Fu Yuxing must be the perfect male god. If she knew, Fu Yuxing would be betraying her now. What kind of reaction will it be? Chapter 9. Thinking about it makes me feel cold. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day. Ning Zhi needs to be discharged after the infusion. The doctor inquired about the situation and agreed for her to go home for rest. I met Zhou Fenghua at the entrance of the hospital. Ning Zhi was grabbed by Zhou Fenghua and wanted to take her to apologize to Tang Xingxiang. I won't go, you have to go by yourself. Ning Zhi struggled to open Zhou Fenghua's hand. Zhou Fenghua chased out of the hospital and changed her pitiful tone. Zhizhi, I know you've been wronged, but for the sake of your mother raising you, can you go apologize to her? Ning Zhi had a resolute attitude and an angry tone, no way. Are you going to watch your mother's leg break? Zhou Fenghua's sudden raised voice caused Ning Zhi's footsteps to pause. Seeing her turn around, Zhou Fenghua revealed the truth and said, I have already spent all the money the Tang family gave me. I don't have any money to repay them. If you don't apologize, they will break my leg. Ning Zhi looked at Zhou Fenghua incredulously and said, did you take the money from the Tang family? Zhou Fenghua's eyes flickered. After Uncle Fu's death, the Fu family only gave me 200,000 yuan per month, which is not enough for my expenses. How much did you take from the Tang family? 500,000. Seeing Ning Zhi's face suddenly change, Zhou Fenghua blurted out, they said back then that as long as you were willing to marry Tang Xingxiang, besides that 500,000 yuan, you would also add an additional 1 million yuan as a dowry. And in the future, you would subsidize me with 100,000 yuan every month. Standing under the sun. Ning Zhi is like placing an ice cellar. 200,000 yuan a month is not enough for her to spend. I also have to sell my daughter. Where did you spend your money? At this moment, Ning Zhi truly hates. Why did Zhou Fenghua give birth to her back then? Zhou Fenghua's face was straight and resolute. I used it to buy a bag, and the 100,000 yuan I transferred to you was given by the Tang family. If you don't want it, I'll just use my beauty card. Ning Zhi laughed back angrily and said, you collected the money yourself, find a way to repay it yourself. I won't go with you to meet scumbags surnamed Tang. Did I risk my life to give birth to you and work hard to raise you, so that you wouldn't even care about my life or death? Zhou Fenghua talked about it over and over again, just those 2 sentences. Ning Zhi has listened too much, leaving only anger. She gritted her teeth and said, what did you give birth to me for? I don't know. But I know, it wasn't me who made you give birth to me. If you dare to leave, I will go to your school and promote this matter. The steps taken by Ning Zhi were taken back again. What does it promote? A cold voice suddenly came from the hospital entrance. Ning Zhi looked up in surprise and saw Fu Yuxing's handsome face with a cold expression. Zhou Fenghua didn't expect to meet Fu Yuxing here. In an instant, he put on a pleasing face and said, if you want to, why are you here? Fu Yuxing stood in the shadow all black. Taking a bag with one hand, my eyebrows and eyes are cold and heavy. The powerful aura spreads silently in all directions. What did you just say about going to school to promote? Fu Yuxing has never been polite when talking to Zhou Fenghua. Zhou Fenghua looked at Ning Zhi and then at Fu Yuxing. He came to the hospital, if it weren't for visiting his mother. That should be for Tang Xingqiang's sake. After all, Ning Zhi, who couldn't support the wall, not only offended the Tang family, but also implicated Gu Chenyang. I heard that Gu Chenyang is still in the bureau and hasn't come out. That's Fu Yuxing's brother. Law, can he not be angry? With this in mind, Zhou Fenghua changed her expression and said, if you want to, I'm asking Ning Zhi to apologize to Tang Xingqiang and rescue Gu Shao from the bureau. Is that right? Fu Yuxing's expression remained unchanged. My gaze fell on Ning Zhi. In response to his questioning, Ning Zhi expressed her attitude, I won't go. Where have you been reading all your books? You don't take responsibility for causing Gu Shao to behave like this. If it affects your engagement with Miss Gu, you will be a lifelong criminal. Zhou Fenghua is afraid of involving herself. Turning around, he assured Fu Yuxing, Yuxing, don't worry, even if I tie her up, I will tie Ning Zhi to the Tang family to apologize. Get on the car with me. Fu Yuxing ignored Zhou Fenghua. After giving instructions to Ning Zhifan, he stepped forward and headed towards the parking lot. Zhou Fenghua didn't react for a moment. I don't know what Fu Yuxing is calling Ning Zhi to do in the car with him. Most likely it was a reprimand that implicated Gu Chenyang. She dare not follow. I didn't stop Ning Zhi either. Did she ask you to beg Tang Xingqiang to let her go? In the car, Fu Yuxing's words fell, and Ning Zhi's face turned a little pale. Do you? No. Speaking, Ning Zhi laughed at herself again. Zhou Fenghua stayed at the Fu family for a day, and Fu Yuxing was probably very familiar with what she had done. Her small hands on her legs suddenly clenched together. Fu Yuxing knew that Zhou Fenghua had taken money from the Tang family, and he also knew that she was on a blind date with Tang Xingqiang. I dare not think further. He will appear there last night. Perhaps it's not a coincidence at all. She lowered her eyes to conceal her emotions. Fu Yuxing knows everything. He was well aware that Tang Xingqiang had ulterior motives towards her 4 years ago. Still coldly watching her fall into Tang Xingqiang's hands again. Thinking about it, my heart is cold. I asked the trees to investigate. Fu Yuxing noticed the changes in Ning Zhi's expression. A casual sentence instantly dispelled the speculation in her heart. She deceived herself by telling herself that Fu Yuxing was after her accident. It was only then that the trees were inspected. He won't be so cruel to himself. But ultimately it's self-comfort. She doesn't want to face Fu Yuxing for the time being. Excusing dizziness and wanting to go back to renting a room to rest for a few days. Fu Yuxing did not force her to go to the villa. Just asking if she has taken any leave. Ning Zhi said he took a few days off, but he didn't speak again. The night before Ning Zhi went to work, Zhou Fenghua called again, but she didn't answer. 2 minutes later, I received a message from Zhou Fenghua. It's an apology. I shouldn't have talked to her like that before. She also said that Tang Xingqiang doesn't need her to apologize anymore. Zhizhi, why didn't you tell me? You have a slight concussion, so rest well and don't think about anything. At the Tang family's place, Mom, I'll go take care of it. Ning Zhi did not believe that Zhou Fenghua could handle it. I don't believe she's so good. However, she couldn't control herself and wanted the thoughts of her mother's concern. Ning Zhi sent a message to Fu Yuxing asking if he had said anything to Zhou Fenghua. As before, there was no response. She waited for about 10 minutes before putting down her phone and going to bed. The next morning, Ning Zhi woke up early. Zhao Pianyu asked anxiously, Zhizhi, won't you take an extra 2 days off? Ning Zhi smiled and said, no, I'm going to get moldy after taking a few days off. Zhao Pianyu joked, you don't trust me to help you take those little dolls. No, bring it to my senior sister. I feel the most at ease. Zhao Pianyu was very impressed by her words, it's good for you to return to school today. There's a big shot coming to our school. When saying the last sentence, Zhao Pianyu spoke mysteriously. Ning Zhi looked surprised and said, what big shot? I'm not sure, I'll know as soon as I see it today. Zhao Pianyu said, I heard it's about the new library in the school. If the big shot is satisfied with the inspection today, he will agree to donate to build a library for the school. Chapter 10. He is waiting for her. You are listening at novelfull.audio. No one knows what happened to Ning Zhi. She took a few days off, but her colleagues thought she was sick. During the break, 2 or 3 well-connected teachers expressed a few concerns. Ning Zhi perfunctorily passed away. The fine mark on her face, she said, was accidentally scraped by herself. Teacher Ning, can you still scrape yourself like this without even leaving your nails? The homeroom teacher of class 3, Hu Lian, spoke in a half-sarcastic tone. Yes, so I dare not keep my nails, Ning Zhiyun said lightly. She doesn't keep her nails, not because she's afraid of scratching her face. But besides teaching, she also has a side job in writing. When typing on the keyboard, she couldn't bear any nails. Her peers all keep their nails and do manicures, but her slender fingers are neat and clean. I never wore any jewelry on my neck or wrist. Hu Lian pouted and said, so, Teacher Ning, are you also afraid of hurting yourself if you don't wear any accessories? Hu Lian's parents are both cadres. 30 days a month, wearing accessories that are not duplicated. Before Ning Zhi came, she was known as the most beautiful teacher in this school. After Ning Zhi arrived, she was compared to others. What makes Hu Liansheng hate the most is Ning Zhi not only snatched the title of her most beautiful teacher, but also had an average Chinese score in her class that exceeded theirs. You should know that the grades of the students in Ning Zhi's class were originally not as good as those in their class. Ning Zhi pretended not to understand the sarcasm in her tone and said calmly, that's not it. I don't wear any accessories because I'm poor. Ning Zhi has never bought any jewelry since childhood, only a bracelet left for her by her father on his deathbed. Because her father told her that the bracelet was very precious. Tell her to keep it safe, not to lose it, and not to tell Zhou Fenghua. She has never worn it before. Later, she came into contact with cultural toys while working. It was only then that she learned that the bracelet left by her father was an extremely precious by Chinan bracelet. Teacher Ning is so beautiful, it's not easy to get jewelry and money. Hu Lian covered her mouth and smiled, why don't you accept my cousin's pursuit? Then, whatever you like, he will definitely buy it for you. Her cousin fell in love with Ning Zhi at first sight. Send flowers as a confession the second time. Rejected by Ning Zhi. Zhao Pianyu happened to hear Hu Lian's words when she entered the office. With a smile, he took it over and said, Teacher Hu is really good at joking. If our Zhizhi looks for money, which round would we get your cousin? Are there too many women who stick to my cousin upside down? Hu Lian said unhappily. Zhao Pianyu looked surprised and said, Does anyone really eat shit for money? You. Hu Lian's words were interrupted by the voices in the hallway outside. She opened her eyes wide, shocked and seductive as she looked out the window at the man who was welcomed by the school leaders to the principal's office. Teacher Ning, Teacher Zhao, do you know who the person who was warmly treated by the principal just now was? Ning Zhi remained silent. She suddenly understood when she saw Fu Yuxing's profile just now. That big shot is him. Zhao Pianyu's expression seemed somewhat joyful yet restrained. Hu Lian did not receive a response. I thought neither Ning Zhi nor Zhao Pianyu knew each other. A sense of superiority arose, that was Fu Yuxing, the president of Fu Group, a famous male god in the circle. A proud person like him is not something that Teacher Ning and Teacher Zhao can see. I have only seen him twice. Zhao Pianyu looked shocked and said, Is Teacher Hu so familiar with Fu Yuxing? So when he got engaged, he must have invited you, right? Ning Zhi lowered her eyes, a smile overflowing from the corner of her lips. Hu Lian's face stiffened as she heard the sarcasm in Zhao Pian's words. I wasn't invited, could it be that you were invited? Well, I was invited. Zhao Pianyu spoke calmly. Hu Lian made a cut. Where will you believe it? The bell for class rang at this moment, and she dropped a sentence while holding a book. Hello, it's easy to dream. Quickly walked out of the office. Zhao Pianyu also had a class and said to Ning Zhi to leave first, so she also went to the classroom. At noon, Ning Zhi and Hu Lian were named to accompany Mr. Fu for a meal. Zhao Pianyu explained, Zhizhi, if Hu Lian targets you later, don't be polite to her. Ning Zhi nodded with little interest. She doesn't want to go. But the principal said that she went when the leader came last time, and this time Mr. Fu donated. If she doesn't go, it won't give face. If the matter of the school library is in vain, where should we go to find a generous and wealthy donor like Fu Yuxing? When Ning Zhi still wanted to refuse, the principal threw out another sentence, don't have any worries. Mr. Fu's fiancée AE will also go for lunch. The implied meaning is simply to eat. I won't make any other mess. Unable to refuse, Ning Zhi had no choice but to go. Hu Lian sat next to her. When Fu Yuxing and Gu Linshan entered the private room, everyone stood up. Hu Lian warmly welcomed her and said, Mr. Fu and Miss Gu are a perfect match. I heard from my father that you are about to get engaged, and I wish you all. Please take your seats quickly. Fu Yuxing's gaze swept over Ning Zhi, who was standing in front of the round table with a fake smile on her face. Look at the principal and others. Gu Linshan was entangled by the enthusiastic Hu Lian. She casually asked who her father was. Hu Lian immediately announced her father's name. Fu Yuxing and Gu Linshan are sitting opposite Ning Zhi. Seeing Fu Yuxing, Ning Zhi looks like a stranger. Gu Linshan didn't say hello to Ning Zhi either. I have talked a lot with Hu Lian. Because of Hu Lian's exposure and Gu Linshan's presence. The school leaders did not shout Ning Zhi to toast Fu Yuxing. Ning Zhi fell quietly, minimizing her sense of presence and focusing on eating. Fu Yuxing and Gu Linshan were the themes of this dinner, and their engagement ran through the entire event. When the principal handed Fu Yuxing a cigarette, Fu Yuxing glanced at Gu Linshan next to him and said he didn't smoke. The principal asked him if he was afraid of Gu Linshan. Gu Linshan smiled and took the conversation, saying that she was pregnant. Ning Zhi's fine eyebrows furrowed slightly as she drank water. The water was so hard to drink. Because Gu Linshan was pregnant, after a meal, there was no trace of smoke in the private room. Ning Zhi still feels stuffy in the private room. Midway through, I wanted to go out and breathe, but my phone rang. Taking out her phone to check the caller ID, Hu Lian glanced over beside her. He immediately laughed and said, "Teacher Ning, what kind of person is Mr. Fu in your remarks?" Everyone looked at Ning Zhi together because of her words. In Nancheng, there are very few people surnamed Fu. When you hear this surname, it reminds you of the prosperous Fu family in the southern city. At this moment, Fu Yuxing was sitting there. Hu Lian's words undoubtedly meant to embarrass Ning Zhi. She is a commoner at the bottom level and pretends to know a wealthy old man. Ning Zhi didn't care about the gaze of others and instinctively looked up at Fu Yuxing. Facing his cold and sharp gaze, her heart slightly froze. He said, "I'll go out and answer a phone call." Quickly walked out of the private room and went to the hallway to answer the phone. After answering the phone, Ning Zhi went to the restroom. When he came out, Fu Yuxing was standing on the aisle a few meters away, as if waiting for someone. Ning Zhi didn't think Fu Yuxing was waiting for her. Her first reaction was to look back into the bathroom. "I think Fu Yuxing is waiting for Gu Linshan." As he passed by, the man's voice sounded cold. "What did the old man call you for?" Ning Zhi's eyebrows and eyes were bewildered. "I don't know either." "You didn't answer." Fu Yuxing has sharp eyes. The silent sense of oppression forced Ning Zhi. Ning Zhi explained, "Yes, Grandpa Fu asked me to go back and let me know if there is anything." At the corner ahead, suddenly came a voice, "Mr. Fu, Teacher Ning." Ning Zhi looked up and saw Hu Lian and Gu Linshan appearing at the corner. My heart was startled. Immediately look at Fu Yuxing. The man's face remained unchanged, thin and cool, calm. Ning Zhi came up with the answer. "He's not waiting for Gu Linshan, he's here, waiting for himself." He didn't even reply to her messages, and just now he was completely a stranger in the private room. "I will wait here." It must be because of the old man's phone call, afraid that she might reveal their relationship in front of the old man.